What is up, YouTube? It is Onion Bomb here, and welcome back to another Honkai Impact 3rd reaction video. Today, we are back on the playlist for one of the final times, I believe, and at least for a little bit, because we have hit the 200. Yes, I've watched 200 Honkai animation, lore video, whatever you want to call it. This is like a really good and really big playlist of just some Honkai lore and stuff. For for anyone who doesn't or wants more information about the stuff or doesn't even play the games or whatnot. But yeah, we are coming down to it. We're not gonna finish it this time because there's a few longer ones ahead, but I think it's gonna be only like 2 to 3, maybe 4 more videos on this, which is just crazy. I don't know if this took me a year or not. I don't think quite. I think it was close though. It was close, but yeah, it definitely took me a bit to get through. So yeah. First video today, we have peak character development, Helia's story explained. This is, I believe, going to kind of be similar to what we left off last time about Helia's story. And this video is only six months old, so nice. So yeah, let's get to it.
If I had asked who is the most boring and bland character of the new cast at the beginning of part 2, most people would have answered Helia. And in a way, she was. While Coralie managed to establish herself as a well-liked character.
I think I even maybe said something like this. If I didn't say I thought it, but yeah, Helia, she didn't really stand out like the other ones did. Like Coralie, her like running with the hammers, funny. Dina, her yo-yos are like really cool. And yeah, I don't know. There's just the other characters just had like just kind of something about them, but Helia never really. If I thought about part 2 characters before, like, diving into these videos, I don't even know if I would have thought of Helia.
Due to her quirky personality and the Demon Lord memes, Helia always struggled to stand out due to her uptight personality, with the exception of the scenes where Hoyo threw in some fan service. But that is no more the case. I always said, let Hoyo cook. It was clear that the purpose of the first story arc in part 2 was to introduce this new world and the 7 shoes, focusing mostly on Song Che. But because of that, the main cast always felt like it was left behind. The writers cannot offer a big character moment or arc to everybody from the get-go, so they have to choose to focus on different characters in different moments of time. But it was only a matter of time until the other characters would get their moment in the spotlight. From the character that people were most indifferent towards, Helia managed to become one of the most loved characters in part 2, up there with Little Che. That is why today I, Homu Devs, will explain everything that happened in the recent chapters regarding Helia, Revenge Spirit, and how she got this new badass battlesuit. So, let us waste no time and get into the story of the biggest Coralie simp. Okay, but before that, let me briefly summarize what the actual happened in the story to facilitate her moment. After clearing the threat posed by the Curse of Shadows in Langche, we went back 100 years in time to a period before the Great Eruption, when Osha and Langche were not separated and the 7 Shoes did not exist yet. As an organization, they were still alive as individuals. During this time, we learn about a competition hosted by Mr. Toast every couple of years called the 10 Shoes War. In order to take part in this competition and be crowned as God's Knight, aka a Shadow Knight, participants must acquire a jade plaque which allows them access to Ruimu to take part in the actual tournament. Ruimu, also called the City of Eternal Night, is a sacred city where the god of Mars is said to live inside a gigantic tower. As we progress through the story, we learn about the history of Mars and the true origin of the Shadow Calamity. Senadina, Naha, and Litost are aliens who come from a distant planet to Mars. Senadina ended up becoming the god of Mars, and she took in a girl named Layla to prepare her to succeed as a god in her stead. After Senadina's sudden departure, Layla is left grieving. Letost, who was previously Senadina's knight, wants Layla to move on and embrace a new era, but he's aware that him remaining by her side will always remind her of Senadina. So he decides to hold the 10 Shoes War to find a suitable candidate to become Layla's new knight, leaving him room to exit the stage and propel Luoxing into a new era. Unfortunately, Layla takes Litost's actions as a form of betrayal and refuses to acknowledge anybody as her knight among the winners of the 10 Shoes War. Not only that, we also learn that the reason why the Curse of Shadows exists in the first place was because of Layla's anger at Litost's betrayal. Fast forward many years, we are now amidst the 33rd 10 Shoes War. Dreamseeker, Hylia and Coralie managed to secure themselves the necessary jade plagues to gain access to Ruimu. Since the stakes are high and Randall also joined on the mission, Hylia puts a lot of pressure on herself to get the job done and prove herself as a Valkyrie. She has a lot of insecurities due to her mediocre talent and poor Honkai adaptability. All her life she compared herself to people like Durandal, believing that she will never be able to reach the level of the prodigies. Due to her insecurities, Hylia lashes out at Coralie and they end up in an argument. After much self-reflection and also with Dreamseeker and Coralie's help, Hylia manages to accept her shortcomings and move forward. Unfortunately, tragedy struck. While confronting Letost, Coralie's body gets pierced by one of his swords while trying to save Hylia. Even though everything that happens in the quantum computer shouldn't affect their real bodies, after all, they died multiple times in the previous Samsara and they were fine in reality, Coralie's body seemed to have taken damage in real life. We later see Ajita theorizing that Litost might have a special authority that he kept secret during the real history and nobody knew about, which was able to transcend the limitations of the quantum computer and affect Coralie in real life. Later, we see that Litost was aware that Coralie and Hylia were not from Mars and used this power to kill Coralie because he wanted Durandal to chase after him. After a prior altercation, Letost deemed Durandal as someone worthy to succeed him as a Shadow Knight. Unfortunately, this pushes Hylia over the edge as she gets consumed by grief and falls into the clutches of revenge. While everything was happening, another entity that we later learn is a Hylia from a different world was observing and manipulating the events from the shadows. This Hylia, who am I going to refer to as Revenge Spirit, observed the events that were happening in this world and manipulated Hylia so that Coralie would die and Hylia would descend onto a path of grief and revenge. After Coralie's death, Revenge Spirit shows herself before Hylia and offers to give her power to take revenge on Letost in exchange for different aspects of Hylia. First time, she gets her blood for a part of her powers, then her eyes for the ability to see things clearly and never miss a shot, and lastly, her heart and emotions, which only serve as a liability. As Litost pointed out, Hylia was becoming more of a machine than a human. Unfortunately, even after all of these sacrifices, Hylia was unable to beat Litost. What a loser, am I right? But all these deals weren't just a means for Hylia to gain power, no. They were a ploy by Revenge Spirit to manifest into this world and kill Hylia. In the beginning, Revenge Spirit could just observe, but as Hylia struck these deals with her, it allowed her to fully manifest into this world. Revenge Spirit had a grudge against Hylia because she hated how weak she was, a naive girl who boasts about saving everyone yet falls flat on her resolve, which ended up in Coralie's death.
Revenge Spirit.
In order to understand Revenge Spirit's motives, we need to look at her past. Maybe the biggest question when it comes to Revenge Spirit is, where does she come from? Is she from a simulated world of the quantum computer, or from a different bubble world / branch of the imaginary tree? And while the game doesn't really go into many details, it is heavily implied that she is from a world simulated by the Martian quantum computer. But first, let me make one thing clear. Ejita mentions that just by entering the quantum computer, the computer can simulate other worlds based on you. This is also something that Dreamseeker and Durandal talk about in chapter 7. Just by entering the simulation, the computer managed to simulate many worlds based on people from Earth. When we look at Revenge Spirit's world, it's clearly a weird amalgamation of Mars and Earth history. For example, the disasters in Revenge Spirit's world are called calamities, same as the Shadow Calamity on Mars. We learn from the texts left behind by the Rita from Revenge Spirit's world that this was a world facing destruction by battling these calamities. These disasters varied in form, power, and pretty much wiped out life in Revenge Spirit's world. We also learn that there is no Kiana in that world, which is the reason why it was doomed to perish. Now, keep in mind that this is not 100% certain. There is also some sussy-wussy dialogue between Hylia and Revenge Spirit that implies that because of the quantum computer, the time and space of the two Hylias intersected, and that's how Revenge Spirit found her, implying that this is not a simulation. But most of things imply that her world is created by the computer. But I want to emphasize that we don't really have a 100% for sure answer yet. And we don't really know if these are true simulations like Elysian Realm, for example, because we don't really know how the Martian quantum computer functions, honestly. There's so many hints implying that it uses the Sea of Quanta in a way to create these worlds, so maybe they are not really simulations, but actual bubble worlds using the data that the computer has, and all these people are actually Star Whisperers. There's so many mysteries, but that is a topic for another video. The idea is that we don't know for certain, but for now let's go with the idea that she is from a world simulated by the computer. Just like in our world, Hylia is a soldier for Schicksal, or New Schicksal, how it's called here. Coralie is a super soldier that was experimented on, having her genes mixed with that of the pollutants from the Calamity in order to enhance her power. That's the reason why she's a Dagao in that world, while in ours she just has Honkai genes. The relationship is pretty similar to the one in the world we know. They start in a pretty rocky way and are tsundere to each other, but slowly get closer as they interact and get to know each other. In both worlds, Hylia has the same issue. She's faced with many doubts and self-esteem issues, while having great admiration for Coralie, whom she considers a genius. On the other side, both Coralies are cynical, lazy, and very smart, admiring Hylia's hardworking nature and simple attitude towards her goals. At the same time, both Coralies have an innate fear of death, but end up sacrificing themselves for their respective Hylia. Our Coralie saves Hylia from Litos's attack, while the other Coralie distracts the pollutants from the Calamity so that Revenge Spirit can get away from the battlefield and leave. After Revenge Spirit learns the truth about what happened with her Coralie, she goes down on the path of revenge. Not only on the world and the people who forced her partner into that position, but also on herself. You see, the person that Revenge Spirit hates the most is her weak, ugly past self, whose lack of strength and resolve ended up killing Coralie. After she undergoes Project 401, which is a project meant to create the ultimate soldier by donning a battlesuit that literally transcends time and space and tests the wearer's resolve across multiple timelines, she gets reborn as Revenge Spirit and marches on a crusade to kill everybody in her world and every weak Hylia that she can find in other worlds.
Dang. Yeah, this is interesting.
Hylia couldn't save Coralie. This is fate's curse, a nightmare from which there is no awakening. The conflict between the two Hylias came down to a difference in ideology. For Revenge Spirit, her past weakness is a sin that she cannot forgive herself for. The pathetic, ugly, and powerless side of Hylia brought Coralie's demise. Hylia is nothing more than an arrogant fool who thinks she can be a hero despite being weak. She knows that she is average, yet she is arrogant. She should just die. Through her story, we see Revenge Spirit trying her best to detach herself from the identity of Hylia. That's why she undergoes Project 401, discards her humanity, and dons a mask while wearing her battlesuit. She doesn't want to be Hylia anymore, so she hides her face. Hylia is a weak, arrogant fool, but she's not Hylia anymore. She's a spirit of revenge born from the experiment. Her resolve transcended the name Hylia and was reborn through the fires of revenge into a new existence.
I do like the mask though. It reminds me of Calpis a little bit. Some of like the armor too. I like the drip a little bit.
Existence who is set on reading the words of herself. Whoa, slow there, Archer. Are we sure that Hoyo didn't collab with the wrong Honkai game? On the other side, our Hylia is the total opposite. She accepted the fact that she is weak and arrogant and embraced her identity fully. She didn't abandon her humanity and her ideals as a Valkyrie. She also acknowledges that she is a hypocrite. She knows very well that she's weak, but she still wants to be a hero. She knows that people are not perfect, but she still wants to help them. Why? Because that's what Coralie would have wanted. She sacrificed herself in every timeline so that Hylia can continue to live. For Coralie, the naive, weak and arrogant Hylia was someone who she deeply cared about and did not hesitate to throw away her life for. So, by giving away her humanity, wouldn't Revenge Spirit do the biggest disservice to Coralie's sacrifice? Even after everything that she did, Revenge Spirit never managed to break her. Hylia did not falter. Her doubts, her resolve, and even Coralie's death were orchestrated by Revenge Spirit so that Hylia would break. You know what they say, in order to truly break someone, you need to build them up first. Because Revenge Spirit knew that Hylia's actions would cause Coralie's death, she made sure that Hylia will march forward and steal her resolve in Chapter 6 against Ritos, anticipating that Coralie would die in the process. After the inevitable happened, she reached out offering power. She didn't want to just simply kill off Hylia. For her, this was a battle of ideologies. She wanted to make sure that Hylia understood that her pathetic self is the reason why Coralie died, and only by embracing the fire of revenge, she can break the shackle of her own fate. But despite that, even after giving away her humanity, inside God's tower, Hylia chose to continue helping people. The path of a Valkyrie was the only one she could walk. This made Revenge Spirit even madder. She then trapped Hylia in her memories, forcing her to witness her memories. She wanted to make sure that Hylia will never escape her torment. But Hylia was the one whose resolve emerged victorious in the end. Revenge Spirit always had an idealized version of Coralie in her mind. For her, Coralie was also a genius, someone much better than she could ever be. But this idealized image was also the thing that kept her from seeing the truth behind Coralie's actions, something that our Hylia managed to see. Coralie was a kind girl who, despite being afraid of death, didn't hesitate to lay down her life. She was a fool, just like her. She was far from perfect. We can see that Revenge Spirit forgot a lot of things about Coralie, and was even surprised by her attitude while looking at Hylia's memories. In the end, she did not understand Coralie and her sacrifice. She only used her as an excuse to run away and become a new calamity. But deep down, she always knew. That is why she didn't bother going back to look for Coralie's game console or read her notes, because she knew that this wasn't what Coralie would want.
Hylia's resolve.
In the end, Revenge Spirit's conviction wavers and our Hylia emerges victorious. She continues to move forward and challenges Lithos to a fight despite knowing very well the hubris of her weakness. While fighting Lithos, she inherits the battlesuit from Revenge Spirit. Keep in mind that the condition to wear that battlesuit is for your resolve to not waver across multiple timelines. And because she managed to prove her resolve by facing Revenge Spirit, who was the previous owner, she was able to inherit the battlesuit. But there are some differences. First of all, Hylia doesn't wear a mask because, well, she doesn't need to. Revenge Spirit hated Hylia. She tried to hide herself, but Hylia accepted her own weakness. She's Hylia and she's proud of that, so she doesn't need a mask to hide her face anymore. And while Revenge Spirit used fire, symbolizing her path for revenge, Hylia uses lightning, symbolizing her resolve as a Valkyrie, since that is the element of her previous battlesuit. Also, Revenge Spirit used a gun, symbolizing cowardice, while Hylia uses blades to fight the enemy head-on like a true Valkyrie. This battlesuit is Hylia's idealized version of what a Valkyrie should be. That's why we even see attacks from Durandal incorporated in it, because she admires her. After killing the Crazy Toast, as Ajita theorized, his authority fades and Coralie wakes up. I think that this is a perfect way to symbolize the resolution of Hylia's journey. Keep in mind that Revenge Spirit believed that Coralie will always die because of Hylia's weakness and foolishness. For her, this was an universal truth across multiple worlds. No matter what, Coralie will always end up dead. But this time, Hylia's foolishness managed to break the chain of fate and bring back Coralie, proving Revenge Spirit once and for all that her path was wrong. Now, it seems that the story will be shifting onto Coralie's POV. We see her in a new area related to Naha, and by the looks of the 8.3 PV, it seems that we will tackle her character next with the idea of death that she was so afraid of in chapter 6. This was an amazing story arc for Hylia, from one of the most flat and uninteresting characters of part 2 to one of the coolest and well-written characters in the entire game. If this is not a Bronya moment, I don't know what it is.
That was definitely more information about it than last time. And yeah, looking at it again using like the B-roll, Hylia versus Latoast was pretty cool. A very cool animation type of thing. Hylia's story, pretty good. Definitely. I agree. Let Honkai cook, like Hoyo cook with these characters because they got they got stuff to pull out with these. It is all they do. I mentioned this before. We've seen it. Discussion, some comments before that try to help me out a bit, but it does get a little confusing. Do you like to do like the second character thing coming in? Like there's like the Revenge Spirit was like kind of Hylia. Now this one made a little bit more sense than it's a little different vibe of than there being like two Himikos kind of thing. But it's just kind of funny that they do stuff like this and because I know there was another like Coralie as well and but this was they talk about a different world or whatever. So yeah, very 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 nice and interesting. I like the story with the mask, even though the mask was a little cool in my opinion. But yeah, she lost the mask and yeah, pretty cool from Hylia. Pretty cool story and a good video playing out together from Homu Labs. Very very nice. Alright, let's see.
Talk.
We need animated shorts back. Honkaiimpact 3rd. This is again Homu Labs. And I cannot agree more. I cannot agree more. This one was only uploaded 4 months ago. And it was just mentioned in a video or two. I think I think Homu said we haven't gotten a proper animated short in a while, and it's mentioned like maybe Honkai Star Rail took all the budget. And yeah, this is something I think I asked about and commented on as well. I fully agree. I fully agree. I want the animated shorts back. They were sick. They did a lot. I feel like for the game, and I said they're the only reason I'm like this into it and have like and even like know of this game's existence at all. You know, it's like I mean the extra stuff they took them a long way. So I would love for more stuff to be made of any sort, like where it's like actual like anime or like concert, but most importantly, the animated shorts. I think we need them back. We need them back. So I ever see you see this like I thought that was my monitor at first. You see this like blue at the edge and under like I what is that something? Cause it's in the video because once I like it's weird though because it's like paused unless that's is that a Homu thing?
Let's talk.
No, it goes away. And this I don't know. Maybe I'm tweaking. I don't know if that's even showing up really, but let's see this guy. This is actually very. I'm very interested to see what Homu has to say about this.
Let's talk animated shorts, or a lack thereof. I know that this is a highly discussed topic in the community with many perspectives. Some think that the lack of animated shorts really hurt the game and shows a lack of care from Hoyoverse. Others think that the game is fine without them, while some other people who need to leave their houses more took it as a form of betrayal from Hoyoverse, while some who probably have a healthy balance between personal life and gacha games don't really care as long as the game keeps getting quality updates. So I wanted to make this video to
Yeah, I don't think I wouldn't say lack of care personally because they still put care in the game and the story at least from what I've seen. But I just moderate. I don't know about all that. Those I don't know. I don't know what camp I fall into. I just moderately want more like just like Honkai Impact Third. Animated shorts like it's not gonna like it's not life or death. I don't know if the game like needs them. It's just the ones that they made are really cool and they cook with those. I'd like to see more, especially the about like part 2 ones.
to let you know what your old friend Homulabs thinks about this topic. Am I happy? Upset? Let's see. First, we need to define what exactly is an animated short. Stop making that face, I can see you. Yes, I am serious, this is actually a topic of discussion online, and honestly I can get the point. Some people argue that both the Summertime Reminiscence concept animation and the Journey Crisis the Saint Freya special event are animated shorts. And they are, technically. One of them is even over 30 minutes long, which makes it an animated medium, because anything over 30 minutes long is not considered short anymore, but a medium-length film, if it's less than an hour. So, I want to make it clear that when I say animated shorts, I refer to in-game cutscenes that are played at the end of a story arc, have an original song, and come with the title of animated short on YouTube and not cutscene. Basically, the traditional animated shorts we got during part 1, like Final Lesson, Lament of the Fallen, Because of you get the drill. The last time we got a proper animated short was Graduation Trip at the end of part 1. The animated short commemorated the end of Kiana's journey in the story, and it was beautiful. Look, people have a lot of opinions about the Moon arc, but one thing that most agree on is that Graduation Trip was a perfect send-off for Kiana. Ever since then, nada. With the exception of, like I said, some animated shorts that were not part of the game's main story. Hoyoverse seems to have shifted their approach for Honkaiimpact 3rd in terms of presentation, not relying on animated shorts anymore, but more so on in-game cutscenes. The in-game cutscenes evolved a lot over the years, and they are really cool, no complaints there. We got some real bangers like the Songche vs Perception fight, the Badum Kiana New Year cutscene, and the Vita vs Sparkle animation, but only one among these was actually in the main story. Honkaiimpact 3rd evolved from a story that was mostly told in a visual novel style with 3D models during part 1 to one of, if not the best Hoyoverse games when it comes to dynamic camera angles and story presentation right now. I am not caught up with Genshin, so I cannot speak about it. I heard that the presentation improved a lot in Natlan, but I left after Fontaine. I am caught up on HSR and tried ZZZ 2.0 though, and I can sincerely say that in terms of presentation, part 2 of Honkaiimpact 3rd is better. But even with the presentation receiving a giant boost in quality, the story feels like it's lacking that final touch that animated shorts provided for the end of an arc. Now, let me address the elephant in the room that most people bring up. Budget cuts. You don't need a degree in rocket science to notice that Honkaiimpact 3rd has been losing steam. The launch of Part 2 ultimately failed to garner the attention of new players and lost the support of a lot of old players due to its bugs, performance issues, dragged out story in the beginning, and the Astral Ring system power creeping almost every Part 1 unit. And while I understand that this is an old gacha game and there is only so much you can do with it, a part of me also feels like Hoyo did a half-assed job with Part 2. Now, with the 9 weeks long patches, a lack of new addition to the endgame content and gameplay loop, the game feels like it's only pumping out new stories and battlesuits, which are great, don't get me wrong. I praise the story and the battlesuits of Part 2 a lot, but other aspects of the game besides these feel pretty neglected. So, a lot of people assume that because Part 2 failed to meet Hoyo's expectations, they moved the animated shorts to their more successful games like HSR and Genshin Impact. But what if I told you that the lack of animated shorts might have nothing to do with Part 2 quote-unquote failing? Yes, you heard me right. I think that they took the deliberate decision to move away from the classic animated shorts and go full in on in-game rendered cutscenes for Part 2 from the very beginning. Look, planning for a live service game like this takes time. The developers already confirmed that Part 2 was in the works ever since the end of Elysian Realm, and the content is planned with at least 1 year in advance. So, while the content is not necessarily finished 1 year in advance, the planning of the content is set in stone, including stuff like animated shorts. So, by the looks of it, Part 2 was planned to release without animated shorts from the very beginning. If they were indeed part of the plan at any point, we would have seen them in-game during the first year of Part 2, which is up to Chapter 7, because they wouldn't have known if Part 2 was a success or not at that point yet. I think that as soon as Part 1 ended, Hoyo already took the decision to move animated shorts to their newer games and go all in with pre-rendered cutscenes for Part 2. And look, I understand, I also have my issues with how they handle animated shorts in their other games. Or had my issues. I feel like Finance animated shorts solved a lot of problems for me, but for the most part the animated shorts for Genshin and Honkai Star Rail felt like promotional materials to make you pull for the character rather than an in-game moment that is supposed to showcase the culmination of a character's development in a more cinematic way. And don't get me wrong, even in Honkaiimpact 3rd, animated shorts were also promotional materials, but they felt more than just that. While for HSR and Genshin I always saw them as glorified ads. They were cool, sure, but they didn't stir anything inside me like they did in Honkaiimpact 3rd. Now, recently they started to put them inside the game in HSR, and Finance animated short is the first one that made me feel the same sensation that Honkaiimpact 3rd animated shorts made me feel in the past, and that's why I love it so much. From an objective point of view, I understand. If someone hired me in the marketing or resource management department at Hoyoverse, I would also make the same decisions. My job is to take decisions that make the most money for the company, so I would probably allocate the resources for animated shorts to the more successful games. But from a personal perspective, I am a bit disappointed with Hoyoverse. And when I say Hoyoverse, I mean the company, not the Honkaiimpact 3rd devs. The Honkaiimpact 3rd devs clearly tried to do their best with what they got, but a lot of times, even if they want to make things happen, the company decides how the resources are allocated between games. And we even have confirmation that resources are being taken away from Honkaiimpact 3rd, since it was officially revealed that Honkaiimpact 3rd lost over 100 developers during 2024, which reflects in the longer patches that we got this year. I still believe that the longer patches are a compromise for Hoyoverse to keep up the quality of the game with fewer developers on board, and honestly they don't bother me, but I would like to see the company care about this game a little bit more. I understand Honkaiimpact 3rd is past its golden age. This is the fate of every long-running gacha game, and it's wonderful that Hoyoverse keeps developing and supporting the game anyways. But even then, I feel like the game could be so much more than it is now if Hoyoverse would decide to actually promote it and work on making the new player experience better. I always said that it's not the animated shorts that made the story of Honkaiimpact 3rd good. Even if you take them out from the game, the story would still be exceptional. Proof is part to itself. The current Hylia arc can easily stand with some of the best story arcs of part 1. The animated shorts are more like the cherry on top of the cake. They didn't make the story good, but they made it a lot more flashier and a lot more attractive for people who are potential players. I know so many people that started this game because of the animated shorts. They were the best promotional material for the game. They were an essential part of Honkaiimpact 3rd's charm and one of the main factors that made people want to try out the game. Part 2 could have been a success if Hoyo made different decisions, and I definitely think that Honkaiimpact 3rd needs the animated shorts more than its younger siblings. People will play Genshin and HSR no matter what, but Honkaiimpact 3rd needs something unique to attract new players, and the animated shorts were the best marketing material for the game in that regard. Another thing that really makes me sad is how little marketing the game gets compared to the past. Hoyo used to sponsor streamers and YouTube channels to check out the game, bring the game to anime and gaming conventions, and be more engaged with the community overall. But all of this feels gone. The game doesn't even go to Anime Expo or Gamescom anymore. I saw so many people at Anime Expo this year disappointed with the lack of Honkaiimpact 3rd merch. It really feels like they gave up on attracting new players, which is a shame, because people want to play this game, but it looks like Hoyo doesn't even try to attract new players anymore. And I don't want people to feel like I am doom posting. I feel like I always been fair with this game, and while I am very happy with part 2's story, battlesuits, events, and many other aspects, I also have my criticism and frustrations regarding other aspects such as the endgame content, half-assed UI, lack of communication and transparency from the devs, lack of promotion, and some others. No, the game will not end of service, and for the people who want to bring up GGZ Global, it's not even remotely close to that situation. In fact, I will make another video in the near future in which I will explain why EOSing Honkaiimpact 3rd would be a very bad move for Hoyoverse, and it's in their best interest to keep the game alive as much as they possibly can.
I'm not gonna lie, the way things were talking, that did kind of pop into my mind a little bit. Oh man, like, I don't know, it just seems like Honkai, the way, like, his Honkaiimpact 3rd might be on its way out, at least compared to, like, you know, Honkai Star Rail and Genshin maybe. Like, Genshin's been a thing for a while, I feel like. Maybe, I don't know, I just think I know of Genshin for a while. But yeah, I was just gonna get a little bit nervous there. If how they, like, you know, they haven't been trying to gather new players. I really hope it's not, like, on its way out. But, like, that seems like not. I don't know. It does seem like these last few videos, that seems like there's more story that they're going for in Impact 3rd, you know, with part 2, and then, like, You know, it seems like there's at least something planned as far as like, you know, like beyond that. Or bringing it together with some sort of like part 3 or something, or another some more APHO kind of thing. It just seems like there's something, but so I hope whatever story they like, if there is like a long term cook that is in the plan here, I hope they see it out and don't have to like abandon anything. But yeah, I do hope they maybe start to come back the Impact third. You know, because I mean I'm not gonna. I don't want to sit here and pretend like I'm like I've been here for a while. Like it was just like last year I watched the animated shorts the first time, and I've done a lot of reacting to this game and the game's lore and whatnot. And I may not be a day one player like some of you guys are out there, um, or even like a huge player in general, but I do at this point I do have some love for the game. I feel like that's fair, even if I didn't even really play it yet myself too much. So I definitely don't want to see it like go. I don't want to see it like die off. And I even like going back and watching it, I just see the effort they put into like promoting it. Maybe not to the extent that was explained, but to hear that it's like not really being promoted like that anymore. It is very very unfortunate. And I hope they come back because they are still going with the story. And I feel like all they have to do is get it out there and people will come back. I mean, it looks like the game from what I see looks good, and according to Homu, it's like the best. Like I forget what he said. He didn't really say the best looking one, but like the best like. Oh, what did he say? Here.
Games when it comes to dynamic camera angles and
Oh
story
yeah.
presentation right now.
Best like camera angles and presentation. So I mean, if that has any sort of truth to it, or even is like remotely felt about with other stuff as well, and with the story is still story, and I feel like it could easily garner more people.
I still love the game with all my heart and I will continue to support it as long as it runs. I can feel that the devs are trying their best to make something special here and they are succeeding in some regards and not very much in others. Part 2 has been great story-wise, but I feel like they need a little more help from Hoyoverse as a whole. I still believe that the game has a ton of potential, I just want Hoyo to see that too. So yeah, Hoyoverse, please bring back animated shorts. The game really needs them. I know that some people translated my videos in the past and put them on Bilibili, so if there are people who want to do the same with this one, you have my permission and full support to do so. Maybe our voices will manage to reach them somehow. Anyway, enough ramble from me, what are your thoughts on the matter?
I agree. Like as I be kind of say is I agree. I would definitely want more animated shorts. Whether it's like it's a selfish want just for my own like
When talking
pleasure of watching the shows or watching the stuff, or just actually thinking it like helps the game. I think it's both areas here. I think it's both. I went. I think it's a very good idea.
when talking
I think it's a very good idea to add shorts back. I would love to see them get back. All right, so now we have more Homu Labs. This one is all the new permanence lore in Honkaiimpact Third explained. I am not really sure what what that means. I guess I'll learn about that as well. And this was only uploaded 3 months ago, so we are getting newer and newer, and that's always exciting. Every single playlist that I ever watched about these, the videos getting like newer and newer. It's like always kind of hyped. It's like, oh, I'm catching up.
When talking about a game series that shares the same cosmology across different titles, you will encounter a lot of polemic, especially for the Honkai series, where games differ a lot in terms of gameplay and target demographic. That is why every time Honkaiimpact 3 is referenced in Honkai Star Rail, you will see a lot of people who play only HSR being upset, or at least slightly off-put by the fact that Hoyo chooses to add story elements that reference older titles. And look, I understand, people don't want to feel like they need to play another game in order to understand the game they are playing now, but Hoyoverse carefully crafted their stories, for the most part, so that you don't require context from the older games, but at the same time, they will reward people who have played the series for a long time. And that's also why channels like myself exist, to help you understand the lore of the series through the lenses of multiple games without you needing to pick up those games if you don't want to. Welcome! Today we are talking about Coralie, Naralab and all the new permanence lore that was revealed in the latest chapter of Honkaiimpact 3. People might think that the Honkai devs only put Honkaiimpact 3 references in Honkai Star Rail, but trust me, they also put a lot of Honkai Star Rail stuff in Honkaiimpact 3. But Honkaiimpact 3 is not that popular, so not many people talk about it, especially in part 2. The aim of this video is to explain how the concept of permanence was explained and interpreted in Honkaiimpact 3. First of all, let's explain the path of permanence. In HSR, we learned that the permanence is a path corresponding to the Aeon Long. Paths are basically congregations of imaginary energy born as manifestations of universal philosophical concepts. People can also tune into these paths and draw powers from them, becoming what we call path striders. Each path is associated with an Aeon, a higher dimensional being who is the embodiment of the path itself. In the case of the permanence, the Aeon presiding over it is called Long. We don't really know much about Long, only that they had the appearance of a Chinese dragon possessing a snake-like body with 4 limbs. They were also known as the progenitor of all dragons and were the creator of a group of entities known as the Science of Permanence. Among this group, we have Naralab in Honkaiimpact 3 and the Vidyadhara in Honkai Star Rail. Rather than being regular path striders, the Science of Permanence are more like the children of Long. I also want to clear out the misconception that Naralab is a Vidyadhara. No, she is not. There are many species in the universe that are Science of Permanence, and while there are many similarities between them, they are technically not the same species. At this point, I feel like it's safe to assume that every dragon-like entity in the Honkai universe is a scion of Long, or connected to a scion in some way. And no, Benares and Kurikara are not scions. While their looks are based on dragons, they are Honkai beasts. Another thing we know about Long is that their primary goal was seeking the meaning of life. It is said that at some point they found their answer, which became known as the revelation of the permanence. After that, Long suddenly disappeared, with many believing that they chose to reincarnate and thus abhorring biological immortality. Now that we defined what the path of permanence and who the Science of Permanence are, let's talk about how they are represented in Honkaiimpact 3. In chapter 9 of part 2, we are introduced to 2 Scions of Permanence, the Calamity Dragon and Naralab. While we knew about Naralab ever since chapter 7 EX, we only found out that she is a Scion of Permanence in chapter 9. But let's start with the Calamity Dragon. Not much is known about this dragon, only that at some point it passed by Senadina's planet, which was on the verge of annihilation, and shed one of their scales, granting the people of that planet immortality through the miracle of permanence. On the other hand, Naralab, before Senadina has given her this name, described herself as a summoned star dragon. She was a dragon who visited many worlds and ended up on Laquadar, Senadina's planet, attracted by the power of permanence left by the Calamity Dragon. There, she would befriend Senadina, who gives her the name Naralab. This is also the moment when we see how both Senadina and Naralab have a difference in perspective when it comes to the interpretation of the permanence. For Naralab, the meaning of permanence is something akin to eternal preservation. As long as life is eternal, you have enough time to solve all your worries, to mend all your wounds, and get past every problem. While from Senadina's perspective, permanence is all about inheritance. What makes life enjoyable is its fleeting nature. Because we don't live forever, we learn to appreciate the small things that happen to us. We are happy when something good is happening and we are sad when something bad occurs. But if life was truly permanent, all these things would hold no value. The real value of permanence lies in passing on the torch to a new generation. Even if you die, your ideas, values, and way of thinking can be passed down to a new generation that will inherit and carry them into the future. This is a concept that is extremely relevant in Honkai Impact 3rd, especially in part 1, with the relationships between Kiana and Himeko, Bronya and Welt, Mei and the Flame Chasers, etc. In fact, I would argue that inheritance is one of the key themes of the game. The two decide to use Senadina's planet as a way to see who is right. Since everybody on this planet is immortal, Naralab would return in the future to see how things turned out. If Naralab was right, the planet should prosper due to the eternal life. But if Senadina was right, things would be far from perfect. As Naralab kept returning to Laquadar, things started to become worse and worse. An endless war fueled by greed erupted and everybody lived in fear and suffering. Naralab decided to remain and help Senadina, but after a few centuries and thousands of battles, things only got worse. It was clear that the war was never ending. That is when Senadina, broken by the endless war, asked Naralab to take her to a new planet where they will cultivate a new civilization far from the endless war. Unfortunately, if they were to leave the planet, the gift of permanence that gave Senadina her immortality would also fade, and time will catch up with her, resulting in her eventual death. Senadina was aware of this, but still wanted to live. Naralab was torn between honoring her friend's wish and take her away, ultimately causing her death in the future, or keeping her alive but condemning her to an eternity of suffering and pain. Naralab chose to honor Senadina's wish, and together with Latost, they left Laquadar. After that, they arrived on Mars and created a new civilization. Senadina took on the role of the planet's goddess, and as her time kept running out, she also took in a girl named Layla to inherit her power and duties as goddess after her death. And from here on, we all know what happened. Layla develops an obsession for Senadina, and after her death is unable to cope with her loss, looking for every possible way to keep her memory alive, never moving on. Naralab is still looking for an answer to the question of what is permanence, but she comes to realize that Senadina's perspective was right. In the end, she dies and becomes the stone at Senadina's grave, reincarnating as Nana, the small dragon that Coralie befriends in chapter 9. Since the science of permanence can't truly die, she chooses to reincarnate and pass on her legacy to a new version of herself, just like Senadina did with Layla. At the same time, she created the space where we see Coralie in chapter 9, and at Litost's request, she agreed to grant immortality to the winners of the Ten Shoes War by preserving their souls. Also, it is revealed that because Layla was constantly blaming Naralab for Senadina's death, her memories ended up a mess and she started believing that the choice she made when she brought Senadina to Mars was wrong. Fortunately, through Coralie's help, the consciousness of the real Naralab with her memory intact is awoken and agrees to help them. Just like you can help me by subscribing to the channel and giving this video a thumbs up if you liked it. Also, don't forget to use code HOMO and my link in the description for a 10% discount to any gamer sub drink you order. Thank you. Now, let's also talk a little bit about Coralie. Coralie's growth in this entire arc comes from how she's dealing with the idea of death. Fear of death is something extremely normal that we all go through in different moments of our lives. In Coralie's case, we're introduced to this theme in the story when we see a flashback of her mourning the passing of her dog, Toto. Coralie was angered at Einstein because she refused to use the Abyss Flower to bring Toto back to life, despite her being immortal. We later learned that the reason why Einstein didn't want to do something like that was because she's someone who has lived a very long life and understands how hard eternal life can be. It's a fate she doesn't want others others to experience. But of course Coralie didn't understand yet. At the end of chapter 6, we see Coralie dying after getting stabbed by Latoast, which due to Latoast's authority resulted in the severing of her consciousness from her physical body. After Hylia defeated Latoast, Coralie woke up in Naralab's domain where she encountered Nana and took upon herself to pass the trials of permanence and achieve immortality. Through these trials, we see Coralie experience different scenarios in which she is granted eternal life and experiences all the suffering and pain living forever can bring. You are doomed to an eternity of loneliness, seeing everybody around you dying, always drifting without a purpose. Everything you achieve, every relationship you build, all will crumble in front of you, leaving you as nothing more than a shallow hollow of your former self. During the last trial, Coralie gets to relive the tragic past between Senadina and Naralab on Laquadar, from Naralab's perspective. In the end, Coralie makes the same choice as the real Naralab to get Senadina, or Hylia in this case, away from the planet, even if she's basically signing her death sentence. But when she's about to make the choice, Naralab's incomplete lingering image intervenes and overrides Coralie's actions. In the end, Coralie and Nana confront her, and Coralie refuses to accept the gift of permanence after realizing that living forever will not bring anybody true happiness. After defeating Naralab's minions and awakening her complete consciousness, Naralab agrees to grant Coralie her power in order to help Hylia subdue Layla, who goes on a rampage later, but that's a topic for another video. The idea is that in the end, Coralie, although still afraid of dying, realized that living forever is a much worse fate. She accepted her imminent end and marched forward in order to help her friends. She even held her own funeral speech, but fortunately, the people outside managed to reconnect her consciousness to her real body. Now, Coralie is able to return to the real world, and she also inherited Nana's powers, which brings up the question, is Coralie a permanence pet strider now? And honestly, I don't know. Pets are not really a defined concept in Honkaiimpact 3rd, so they never really address it. The only confirmed pet strider in Honkaiimpact 3rd is Vita. What's sure is that Coralie is indeed using the power of permanence. Personally, I wouldn't say that she is a pet strider per se, but more so a sign of permanence by proxy. She didn't tune with the pet of permanence like a pet strider would normally do. She's more so inherited these powers from Naralab. I really liked how this chapter handled the idea of death and permanence. On one hand, we have Naralab and Senadina giving two different answers to the question, what is the meaning of permanence? One interpreting permanence as the passing of the torch, while the other as eternal life. After witnessing Senadina's resolve, Naralab accepts her version of permanence as a genuine one. Then we also have Coralie, a person who was always afraid of dying, understanding that eternal life can be a fate far worse than death. While the idea of death is scary, it's also the very concept that allows us to truly live. I personally went through a similar situation in my teenage year. I didn't become a dragon, godlike being. I was more so afraid of that, but you get the point. I was also concerned with the idea of death, fear, nothingness, and always wondered if anything I do has any meaning. Fortunately, I managed to get over it and start living life without thinking too much about it. At the end of the day, what's life if not a series of coping mechanisms only to delay the inevitable? So why not enjoy the journey while it lasts?
And I remember watching the oh man, if I could talk, the boss battle of the court with Coralie and Hylia. I think it was like even like a split screen one at some moments. Yeah, that was a good one. I think that might be the most recent one. So nice. Yeah, that was so nice. So Coralie gets back in the focus after the Hylia stuff. Very interesting. Oh wait, I was gonna do one more, but we're coming down to it anyhow. No need to rush things. I've been recording for a while. I think that is gonna do it for me. We are on 204. I only did like 3 videos today. They weren't really the longest, so I'm not sure like I must have yapped for a while. I don't know, but and I kind of took a little peek at like the ending of this playlist here, and the last few videos actually look like they're Honkai Star Rail related. Some of them may be like you know, both Star Rail and Impact Third. But there are some that it's like that it might just be Star Rail. So might be coming down to it as far as solely Impact Third Part 2. I think there's only like another video or two left of that on the playlist, which yeah, that's crazy. So next time we'll be finishing that up, I think. And yeah, we'll see beyond, you know, after the playlist is done. I will be retiring from YouTube as a whole, tiring my chin up. Okay, after playlist is done, actually there are some other things about Honkai Impact Third that I'm gonna kind of peep, and you know, I might try again now that it's like really like starting to like come together in a way. I might actually look towards some Star Rail stuff, see what that all is. So since now it's like really like they're becoming like partners in a way. Or not become. Hopefully you know what I mean. But yeah, for now though, guys, that is gonna do it for me. Thank you guys so much for watching. Like or dislike, subscribe or don't subscribe. No, it's always up to you. I will see you guys in the next video. Watch for me. Good boy.